There's a lot of reasons to love Borderlands. The sensational art style, the memorable characters, the loot, the continued support for these games years after the release, and the spectacular community. Seriously, there are few gaming communities more positive and interconnected than this one. Except when it isn't. All those things are great. And yeah, those things may originate in Borderlands 1 among the fans and gamers who gave Gearbox their big hit. But Borderlands wouldn't be what Borderlands is today if it weren't for a more special game and one of my all-time favorites, Borderlands 2.
Right there.
Borderlands began development as a realistic sci-fi shooter that was dead set on following the rules. But in the spirit of the company, Gearbox soon realized that in order to fulfill their vision, they had to throw all the rules at the wall. Another team in the studio working to make a more heavily modified Borderlands suggested the comic book-like cel-shaded art style, and it stuck. The first game was built under crunch, but its success should certainly speak for itself. Gearbox's secret dev team already had plenty of ideas to set up for a sequel. Across the studio, artists were simply told to go nuts and come up with the most insane things they could to put into the game. The art style became a bit less rough around the edges than one, but exploded in terms of colors and designs. They were also determined to tell a more engaging story, but also one that doesn't constantly get in the player's way. All mixed together, with a dash of Gearbox magic, the result is, well, pretty awesome. It should go without saying, but the intro to Borderlands 2 is one of the greatest intros to a video game of all time. It takes us from the familiar, arid wastelands of Borderlands 1 to an entirely new frosty tundra. The heavy short-change hero is a banger and perfectly sets the tone for a story of anti-heroes clashing with a ruthless villain. A villain named Handsome Jack, who, even before you decide what class you're going to play, has wronged you. It's the perfect setup. The 4 Vault Hunters of Borderlands 2, and the 2 DLC characters as well, I should add, make up what is probably the best short roster of playable characters ever in a shooter. Bold statement, I know. Get ready, this video is full of those. You got Salvador, a balls-to-the-walls maniac who definitely isn't compensating for his height. The pinnacle of future badass soldiers in Axton, who has a charming relationship with his turret. Maya, a spunky yet cunning siren who, by the way, has a really nice color scheme. And of course, the greatest Vault Hunter in the series. Another bold statement, I know. Zero, the haiku-speaking, sword-slicing, cloaking ninja that we all love from the bottom of our hearts. I love Zero, in case you can't tell. You really can't go wrong with any of these characters. For all having one action skill each, you get an impressive amount of mileage and fun out of the playstyle differences of each class, which adds a lot of replayability to a fairly linear game. Each one also has super memorable and quirky voice lines, and in spite of knowing maybe next to nothing about the class you're playing as, it's hard not to become attached to who they are. I'd almost compare it to Han Solo, someone whose design and demeanor alone communicate everything you need to know about the character. It doesn't take very long into your first playthrough to realize exactly what game Borderlands 2 is. Gearbox took a very different direction with 2 compared to the previous game, but their intentions quickly become pretty clear. Claptrap greets you just like at the first game, except this is the last Claptrap unit. Hyperion exterminated the rest. You save Hammerlock from a bandit attack and soon begin questing, but the enemies you fight in this area are surprisingly punishing. And there is far more humor than Borderlands 1, but much of it has this dark and occasionally tragic undercurrent. This isn't just Gearbox attempting to create a more captivating introduction to a Borderlands game. It signifies a darker chapter for the series altogether. And as such, if there's ever been a game that could be called the Empire Strikes Back of video games, I feel like it's Borderlands 2. I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. The game starts off in the icy southern shelf of Pandora, a far cry from the barren wastelands of the first game. You soon catch up with the fledgling rebellion, the Crimson Raiders, but you're pretty much at a disadvantage against Hyperion right from the get-go. There's even a point where you break off from the rest of the Crimson Raiders and literally trek all the way across Pandora to meet back up with them in a floating sanctuary. There's crazy twists left and right, and even a moment where you realize the bad guy is the father of your AI pal Angel since the first game. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if Gearbox legitimately took cues from Empire in structuring the game. If they didn't, I would believe that too, but still, the comparison is fun to think about. The best difference between Borderlands 2 and Empire, however, aside from Brick calling you Slab 24/7,
I'm proud to call you a slab,
is that you actually get to defeat the villain at the very end of it. In 2012, when games like Mass Effect 3 were aiming to defy the conventions of having appropriately pulpy endings and favor something apparently sentimental and a little dumb, Borderlands 2's ending feels immensely satisfying. It's like, yeah, you get to open the vault, kill Handsome Jack, and take the vault key. You won, and you earned it. It feels so damn rewarding. But half the reason the high note Borderlands 2 ends on works so well, aside from just being the right ending for the genre, is the amount of hell you have to go through to get to that point. Handsome Jack sabotages you from the start, taunts you and the other Vault Hunters, nearly blows up Sanctuary, mutilates Bloodwing, kills Roland in front of you, kidnaps Lilith, and so much more f***ed up shit. Jack is a genuinely menacing villain, not just for his asshole charm, endless Hyperion resources, and the fact that he truly believes in his cause, but because he constantly leaves you feeling vulnerable. He's always one echo call away from the next asshole remark, and over time it makes you feel pretty pathetic. Even the freaking respawn machines are constantly roasting how dispensable you are, and how your continued deaths are funding Hyperion's operations. It's like the difficulty curve in Borderlands 2 isn't there only to create a more challenging game, but to erode your confidence and your ability. In spite of being a badass Vault Hunter, it ultimately feels like David taking on Goliath, or Luke against the Empire. To draw more Empire comparisons, of course. And so, for all these reasons, when the time comes to murder Jack, there's no question of if this man is worth saving. It's off the f***ing table. He can go to hell. He deserves it. On a technical level, Borderlands 2's visceral approach to storytelling is constantly reflected in the intensity of the gameplay. When you get the right mix of music, visuals, and enemies storming you while shouting death threats, the game goes up to 11. Take Bloodshot Ramparts. This area is considerably smaller and more cramped than most of the other regions in the game, but it's stuffed from front to back with Hyperion robots and non-stop action. Jesper Kid's music feels heavy and mechanical, like a robot army of death marching to kill you. It's why the final battle with the Constructor, an enemy type you fight dozens of times in this game, has weight and feels like a do-or-die encounter. It's f***ing intense. And it also speaks to a huge aspect of this game's personality. Pandora is an amazing setting, not just because every area feels visually distinct, but because Gearbox used everything at their disposal to give each region a unique atmosphere, its own flavor, so to speak. The Wildlife Exploitation Preserve feels like you're stepping foot into Disney's Animal Kingdom, except it's run by Hyperion, and feels very cold, authoritarian, and a little tragic. Lynchwood takes Borderlands Western inspirations and goes full throttle. The entire area feels lawless and cutthroat, and is surrounded by large rock cliffs, like a caged-in town of lowlifes. Opportunity is a physical embodiment of the false utopia Hyperion would create for Pandora. Caustic Caverns is a bubbly, acid-soaked zit, popped by the removal of Sanctuary from up above. Iridium Blight is an apocalyptic hellscape, representing what would truly become of a Handsome Jack-ruled Pandora. I could go on, but you get the idea. The amount of atmosphere and attention to just how all the elements of the game's design fit together is baffling when you look at the quality of many of Gearbox's other titles. It's like Borderlands is the only series that ever seems to click with the studio anymore, which is sad, but boy do they do this franchise justice. Even after 7 years of playing, I keep finding new things in the game, secrets I didn't know about, or loot that just seems worth grinding for. And the amazing thing is, a lot of people feel this way. It could be the hype for Borderlands 3, but 2 has had a massive resurgence in 2019. The game reached its peak player count on Steam this year, which is pretty much unheard of for a game this old. Most franchises with an anticipated sequel will draw a decent amount of players to revisit the previous game, but definitely not in the magnitudes with which Borderlands 2 has been revisited and celebrated these last several months. That should hopefully speak to the timelessness of this game and the long-lasting impact it's had for many gamers, including myself. In 2012, playing video games wasn't a hobby of mine. I either played them because they were Star Wars, or they let me play with someone from school. That all changed with Borderlands 2. Now I play video games simply for the hell of it, searching for similar thrills as to what I found in that original experience. I don't always find it, and sometimes what I find is better than what I already had, but it's a hobby I'm proud of nonetheless, and I owe my gratitude to Gearbox for that. To this day, I still haven't figured out what possessed me to play Borderlands 2 in the first place. Maybe it was meant to be, maybe I just wanted to break into gaming in the wildest way possible. I don't know. But I do know, it's been a good run. I've had a lot of fun, and someday, after Borderlands 3, I'll be back for more. Thank you, Borderlands 2. Sincerely, Zero's #1 fan.
How you like me now? How you
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. This video took approximately 18 hours to put together, not including the near 300 hours I've spent playing, streaming, and recording Borderlands 2, and is being put on YouTube just 24 hours shy of Borderlands 3 being released. I'm grateful I got it out before then, but this is definitely the equivalent of getting your homework in at the last minute. This is the first of many videos I plan to do on this channel, and as such, if you enjoyed what you just watched, definitely subscribe. My next video will of course be on Borderlands 3, but in the future I plan to cover other video games and even many of my favorite films. If you want to check out my playthrough for Borderlands 3 along with all the other games I play and beat, you should follow me on Twitch at Sator. Follow me on Twitter at Parkes Harman, and again, stay tuned for more content coming from this space. Artor away.